our welcoming address right now. And so if I could pull up the Fort Belknap President Mark Azure, Vice President George Horsecapture, if you guys could please come on up here. I guess we'll go Mark first, and then we'll go George after that as well. So please give Mark your attention, and he'll help us out with the welcoming address.
I don't know that I do this. Maybe I do. I just want to welcome you on behalf of the council, Fort Belknap Tribal Council, for coming to Fort Belknap and participating in what I believe is an ongoing project here in the state of Montana for all the reservations. I'm going to echo what Casey said, so I'm not up here very long, that this is important. I myself don't know a whole lot about the Nakota language. I think what I know, I learned from my Auntie Geraldine in some classes, and it was me that walked away, not her. So, but it is important, and we need to have our children pick this up. I was at a meeting north of the border over the weekend, and language, although it wasn't specific to the meeting, it kind of turned it in that direction, that if you have your language, then you have your identity, and that's been echoed probably across the state of Montana on reservations forever, but I'd like to reiterate that. And just say welcome. Hope you enjoy your stay. I understand there's some good food lined up, so that should keep you folks here. Lastly, when you go, please take as many mosquitoes as you can load up with you when you go. So with that, thank you for all for coming. Casey, thank you.
Yeah, right on. All right, round of applause for Mark. Appreciate his good words. Spoken like a true leader. All right, we're going to call up your one and only, the Mr. Vice President George Horsecapture. Come on up, sir. If you would like, kindly do that for us. Look at his cool walk. I wish I had a walk like this guy. No, I don't. I probably have tons of women following me. Oh.
All right, like the president said, welcome. I hope you all enjoy yourself. It's quite something. As most of you know, my father, George Horsecapture Sr., years and years and years ago, did a lot of research, did a lot of cataloging. I remember going to different places in California, in cataloging, be it music, be it language, on a wax cylinder. And you record that. He did a lot of that. And he was really interested in Gros-Ventre culture and Plains Indian culture. And as you well know, he died a couple years ago. And after he died, I was out at high school. And I was listening to these kids do presentation in their language, in white clay, in Nakota. And I was thinking, if my dad would have only lived a couple more years longer, he would have seen and he would have heard that. Because it was ever so awesome to hear these young people introduce who they are. Not their English name, not like George, but their proper name, in their language. It was something that would cause you to take that inhale, more than just breath, but of pride to see that. Because some of the older ones, that's what they were really afraid of. That being ended was going to be once upon a time story. And you see these kids, thanks to a lot of you with your languages, bringing back our languages, helping us to retain them. Helping us, the traditional person right here, Mr. Blackwolf, look, my friend right here, she's always good to me. A lot of you. And our kids see this. They see it's very, very valuable. And I enjoy that. Like my son-in-law, the president. I don't know a lot of my language. I know some other things, but not too much of my language. So I want to thank you for helping our young children. I get amazed at me. I got one of them. Maybe it's because of my drinking days. It takes a lot to get through there, but to watch these young people pick it up with their fresh brain, it's awful cool. And I try not to be envious, but sometimes I do by accident. I thank all of you. All right, bye.
And I'm really happy to bring up this particular individual here. She's the manager for the Montana Indian Language Program. Margret is originally from northern Canada. Holy, how far northern? And moved to Montana this year to be nearer to her daughter and grandson. Margret is Cree, Tonse, and grew up in northern Alberta, Northwest Territories, where her large extended family resides. Margret has spent the last several years working for tribes in the Southwest, as well as leading out on national issues, environmental and land use concerns for all tribes throughout the U.S. Her commitment to the preservation and conservation and participation, that's a lot of shins, of Native American culture and language is a lifelong passion. Oh, that's a lot of shins, eh? Oh, preservation, conservation, participation, passion. Please feel free to contact Margret at the email address, and she'll give it to you later, all that she can. Please put a big round of applause for Margret Cook. Yay, Margret! Woo.
Good morning. Thank you for that. I feel like I'm at a rodeo or something.
There you go.
It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to see another language summit and for Fort Belknap to be leading out. It's really awesome. I'm the program manager for all of the Indian language programs in Montana. I almost said Arizona. In Montana. And I have to tell you, at our all-tribal summit that we had back in, I think it was May, with the Montana Indian Educators Conference, all of our programs from all the different tribes did a presentation that was absolutely awesome. I mean, some of them people were actually crying to hear the stories. And it occurred to me that while our languages have been almost lost, and some places is lost, it's a sad thing, and we and all of you who run these programs really want to see things happen quickly, right now, quickly. But it took all those years to beat it out of your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. Don't expect it to change overnight. This is serious work. It's going to take you a lot of years. I don't see it happening under 10 years that you're going to be able to really revitalize your languages in the way that they should be. So I just want to give that bit of encouragement, because I know some of you do feel that it should happen quickly. And you work hard at it, and you get discouraged, or you get to a place where you just say, oh, I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing. You are doing the right thing. Everybody is supportive of you, and you can support each other, which is what these summits really do, is give you an opportunity to support each other, and that's really awesome. One of the things that I've noticed in all the places that I visited and the places I've listened to in the conferences and the summits is that the loudest voices for language development, preservation, is with the youth. When those young people get up and plead that they learn their language, it really touches your heart. And for the elders who hear that, I think they're really encouraged. Is it always encouragement that you get? No. Some of you know that you don't. Some of it is a challenge. You don't always get support from your community, but keep in mind, you've got community members that come from a life that was pretty hard and pretty difficult. And they were challenged not to learn their language. They were not only challenged, if like my mother, it was beaten out of them. I have a foster sister who was pulled into the mission school when she was 12 because she didn't speak English. And she was so badly treated that she was traumatized and to this day cannot recall a word of her language. So that's what you're fighting. So you have to get over all these mountains before you see that valley. So one of the things that I always say about language is, in my younger days, watching my relatives drinking a lot, I noticed one thing, and it always stuck with me. No matter how badly they were treated by the police, by others, as soon as they heard their language, it seemed to open their minds a little bit, and their faces would shine. It was who they were. It's what made them as a person. And you need to keep those visions of those kinds of experiences in front of you that keep you going to do the work that you're doing. So I always think that, and it's my personal opinion, that language and culture are the best tools that you have to overcome drugs and alcohol. And right now, meth is taking a terrible toll on our people. So I'd like you to keep that in mind. It's a big responsibility, but you're all up to it. And you're all doing marvelous jobs. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you, and I particularly like to thank Ray and Amal, who really are leaders in the community in language preservation. And if you have any questions, please feel free to see me during the next day. I'll be here for half a day tomorrow, and I have my card, so I'll certainly give it to you. But thank you so much for inviting me, and please be encouraged. Thank you. Masi.
Mr. Lanny up, because we're still waiting on guess who, Mr. Politician. Senator John Windyboy, is he here? Senator John Windyboy, you here? Well, he's not here, so we're going to move Lanny. Dr. Lanny Realbird. He's of the Big Lodge clan. He's a child of the Whistling Water tribe. He's a part of the 3 affiliated tribes in the Apsalaga. And his name is Deeds are well known. His profession, he's an educator and consultant. He's a language advocate, program planner, educational designer, and business and leadership consultant. Partners that he works with is Dakota College Alliance, 3 affiliated tribes, and Little Shell. Please put your hands together for Mr. Dr. Lanny Realbird. You wouldn't really say Mr., right? You just say Doctor. Dr. Lanny Realbird, awesome.
Oh, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. You have to bear with me. I've been under the weather lately. Had some health issues come up. I got a cold, summer cold, and I want to say that years ago, I was counting about 17 years ago, we had a ceremony out there in your sacred mountains. I gave some tobacco to a Cree man. His name is Bobby Murray. And he pulled out his medicine bundle, and at that time we had offered some prayers to this land, to this country that you own here. You good people here. Remember the Rowan and the Kona people. And at that time, we put that tobacco offering for our language and our culture and our children and education. And we went on like that, and it was just mainly some of my Crow relatives and some of the Cree people. And they offered prayers so that this language could come about like that. And some of the people at that time were there to support our efforts We're very, very proud of our host, your people, who helped us with the food, and made sure that there was some security going around there, that nobody bothered us, and we were praying in that medicine bundle ceremony. And I want to say it came a long time. Nowadays I look and reflect upon the prayers that were been said, even though it's 17, 18 years ago that I see that your people have an immersion school, a school that was built by your own people, something that a lot of people aren't doing. They're looking to the state of Montana, or they're looking to the United States government like they used to years ago. Some people nowadays, they still waiting around at the gates of the fort waiting for some kind of handouts. Instead, your people decided to get off their horse and stand on the ground to say, this is what we're going to do. And then you've done it. You're very great people to do something that magnificent, to take leadership and create your own school. You go around, there's people that, they're talking really big and whatnot about language and their knowledge of culture, but they don't have a school like you people. A place that there's a lodge there, a place where there's prayers, a place where there's encouragement, a place where there's support. And I want to say that you people have be proud of your school. And I'm sure that the other tribe who is part of this great civilization here, of the Grovon people and the Nakota, that they may at some time set up a lodge, put down the base poles of what they stand for, what it means to be who they are, whether it's the white clay people or the Nakona, and then have that happen like that, to where there's a Nakona lodge too, where it belongs to the people, and not necessarily set up by Head Start, set up by the department or the public instruction, to where it's yours. And it's even more awesome to see that your people are running your own activities, or your own institutions, like your own tribal college. Your tribal college, maybe sometimes enrollment's up and down, but you're always represented in a good way. You're always represented in the field of education. And when it's time to step up, you hear that you have people in this community that are making a name for themselves. And that's what happened about years ago. We had that ceremony out there at your sacred mountain and asked for prayers, and then the Creator somehow heard the pleas of your elders. Somehow they heard the need for healing, the need for identity. And you took it upon yourselves through your own songs, through your own prayers, through your own teachings. And you stand out today. This is a place where not too many people are doing what you're doing. And I believe that's very admirable. I want to thank Raymond for asking me and inviting me to this outstanding event like this. Years ago, we were part of this organization. We called it the Learning Lodge Institute, and it was funded by the Kellogg Foundation. And we set up methods. We introduced research that we went out to find the best practices in education regarding language and culture. And at that time, we brought in to this location the Hawaiian Immersion School. And that's not too often you get those Hawaiian people to come out. They came over here. At that time, I sure didn't want to be noticed about anything, but they asked me if I want anything. So I was thinking about when I went to Hawaii and I was visiting there. Well, we want to bring you something. Oh, geez, there was a lot of good things in Hawaii over there. You know, they had all kinds of nice shells. You could make some of those breastplates with. They had all kinds of they all had like these shark teeth designs. They're fish hooks. They had things that they used for good luck. They had some healing amulets and whatnot. And I was thinking, the best thing I liked in Hawaii, was that, I don't want to tell them, but it was that pig that they buried in the ground, luau. So I just thinking out loud, I said, maybe the best thing I liked about is when you guys had that luau and you had that pig roasted in the ground and had a bunch of reeds over it and a bunch of palm leaves and stuff. Yeah, okay then. Doggone, when they came to Fort Belknap here, they brought in 2 coolers and it was full of that meat. Oh, geez, I felt kind of embarrassed. There's what we brought you. They brought it clear from Hawaii. They must have thought of it like a really hungry guy or something. But that's kind of what I have in reflection. I want to say that I'm really humbled by your people as well, your leadership. I have some daughters that are members of this tribe. I have a granddaughter. I have many grandchildren, but I have one granddaughter that is enrolled here, and really proud that she could say that her tribal membership is of the White Clay people. So I'm very, very honored to be in your presence, to know that you welcome my people, my grandchildren into your camp, into your lodges like that. So if anything, I wanted to say aho to you all, and I'm sure that the blessings that your elders and the people that you have of prayer include those people that are a part of this. Years ago, I found out about my grandchildren and how they became members of this civilization here, and that was, I guess it was right down the road that one of Joseph's children, he had, plural marriages, Indian way, and so when they were about ready, trying to go on, he left one of his children with one of the families here, one of the White Clay people, and I think his name was Joseph too, and he was raised by your people. Anyway, that's where I seen on a pedigree chart where my daughters came from that. Right now, I'm currently working with a lot of different tribes other than the Crow people. Although I would prefer to, be participating in some Crow activities. I've had some great opportunities to work with the Dakota Language College Alliance. And what they're doing right now, and what we're doing basically, is we put together a grant that's primarily for creating teachers to teach the Dakota language. So what they hired me to do was to go into some of these Dakota meetings, and so a lot of these fires of the Dakota were sharing ideas, and they were expressing different, challenges. And so I was hired more or less to be an observer from the outside looking in, because a lot of them on the inside didn't see what was going on the outside. So basically, I was kind of like a troubleshooter and kind of helped them reset. So then when I listened to some of the challenges that they had in terms of teaching, I would write reports and listen to their discussions. Sometimes it was in Dakota. So conveniently, I could understand Dakota somewhat. Probably within one sentence, I could probably pick out maybe half of it. So there was some times where I was able to understand some of it and get a perspective and share some of the observations I had in terms of developing their language mission. And I guess basically I'm just going to go over some highlights that maybe some of your people might consider in terms of when you're teaching this language or encouraging this. First of all, we're going to need some teachers. Okay, you have the foundation for teachers, and that you have people here right now in this room that care and that could get together and help each other. You don't need anybody to tell you to organize. You don't need the permission from anybody. You could just say, hey, we're going to meet at Buster's place and we're going to design a program. Before bingo starts, we're going to get people to come over. And we're going to plan a little bit about our education program. There are things that you could borrow from different institutions. They've already done some of the work, like for teaching teachers. You've got a number of immersion schools, particularly that partnership that White Clay has with the Pananaleo out there in Hilo. Also, there's an outstanding immersion program in Navajo country where they created a whole bunch of Navajo teachers. So what we basically need to do is sit down and make a plan. Somebody like Raymond and create a committee that could say, okay, here's our language plan. Here's what we're going to do in terms of teaching. Here's how we're going to recruit teachers. Here's how we're going to, here are the resources that are going to be applied to teaching. And then you could you have an institution. In these institutions, I noticed by visiting many other tribes in terms of immersion, a lot of these institutions can speak. But the thing about it is that they've been so immersed and acculturated to mainstream standards that it's just basically like maybe somebody in the mainstream able to talk language, but in their heart they're still mainstream. What I mean by mainstream is that they're like white people. So what that means is that in order to take the next level of language, you're going to use that language and express it in terms of your identity and culture. And you people have enough research, like what I heard from Mr. Horsecapture, that the late George had set some foundations down of what it meant to be a Grovon, what it meant to be White Clay, what it means to be Nakona, and put those elements, those foundations, those protocols of what it means to be, to say, okay, this is how I conduct myself amongst my sisters. This is how I conduct myself in front of elders. This is what I do. I don't run with a knife. I don't do certain things at night. I don't whistle. You could create a whole list of things to what it means to be, whether it's a Nakona or a White Clay person. And keep an inventory of these to where you immerse these into your language to where you're speaking this, and it takes an identity of what it means to be. So you not only complement that language, but you instill and indoctrinate a way of thinking. And that's what I'm getting at. That not only do we need this language, but we also have to have this identity behind it to express what we're doing. Because somebody could say that this song came from the wind. Well, some people might think that, yeah, that the wind is just blowing, and they don't realize that in that wind there is some power. in that wind, it brought some energy from some place. Maybe there was a ceremony somewhere where it comes from. Maybe there was some smudge that was in there. Some people don't think that way. They just think it's just wind and it's part of the elements of science of how this comes about like that. And then you begin to instill this. So that's another point, that we have the ability to organize, we have the ability to plan, and we have the ability to instill culture in this experience. We have the capacity here in this reservation, if I could say we, because today I join your circle, that school over there down a few blocks down can be an institution of where they could train your teachers. Not only in Head Start, but in daycare, just to like the same model that was used when that Upunana Leo started. They called it Language Nest, that started from the Maori people, and it came over. Some of those people in Hawaii said they used to be West Coast Indians, according to their stories from what they told me. I stayed over there about 2 weeks and hung out with different tribes of Hawaiian people. And I was so amazed of how they created their own words. They had, like on each island, they had a little working group of elders, and they would sit there and they would enjoy each other's company, but they would give them a word saying, okay, tell us what this word means. Maybe it could be an external hard drive. So somebody comes in there and tells them what this external hard drive is, and they think it over with some words, and they come up with about a list of 5 or 6 words. Then another Hawaiian group on another island are faced with the same challenge to interpret this word to where it comes about. They get a consensus of about 6 communities, and then they create these words. And it was this one school, it was just 2 little house trailers of some Hawaiians that were working together. There was one guy that didn't speak Hawaiian, but he knew Hawaiian songs, and he'd just sing over there, sing, and those kids were singing, and they were learning. We have the ability to create our own songs. We have to do whatever it takes to teach this language. And I went into another room, into this little trailer that they had, and they had all of these little children books that they got from like secondhand stores. And what they did with them is that they had these groups of people, these parents, just because their kids were going to that school, they had to do their share of community service, so that they didn't have money, but they had to pitch in somehow. So they took these little books, these little kid books, saying, and they would write over them, they'd ask a Hawaiian, and the Hawaiian would put these little captions in Hawaiian, and they'd cut them out and they'd paste them into these books. And then they recorded these. And they not only heard it, they heard the recording from these Hawaiian people, but they also had a little book to accompany that. And they did it not with a great big huge publishing company, but they did it with their own accord to say, hey, this is what we're going to do, we're going to create this. And they created their own materials. They didn't wait around for somebody to say, oh, we have a good marketing plan, we're going to do this for you, we're going to save your language. No, they did it on their own, just like you people did with your white clay immersion school like that. So there's another point there in terms to consider about when we're planning this language. It's going to take a plan, it's going to take a vision. I guess the main thing was just like what this beautiful lady offered this morning, a prayer to guide us that way. And years ago, whenever we did anything, even nowadays, when some of you went on to your journey through education or military, you had people pray for you, that you would go and go across the ocean, a big pond, and come back unscathed, unhurt. Or you come back with victory, you come back with largesse, you come back with bounty that you can share with your people. And those accomplishments were through ceremony. Those accomplishments were achieved by the tobacco, or by the smudging, by the medicine bundles, the different types of medicine bundles that you people have that you could put down. Maybe even an open spot right there, maybe even a Sundance, maybe even a sweat, to where you say, hey, I stand before you, I kneel before you, the Creator, to look upon me for a mission that we're going on, and ask you to create a road for us. And if you're humble enough, that Creator's going to listen to you. It might take years, it might take a generation or two, but it can be accomplished through the power of your medicines that you have, the prayer and the faith that you have. These things can happen like that. And that's how we should approach this, with a plan, a vision. A vision is a plan, to a point where you're sitting around, even these little kids, you get an idea to share them. You're going to speak this language. We're going to have a 4-year institution. We're going to have a 4-year university in White Clay, in Nakona, to where you're teaching, you're participating, and create this vision and instill this in them. They're going to believe that. And if they don't see it, but you keep pushing it, they're going to want to, and that'll gain momentum like that. I'm going to switch gears here now, and I'm going to present something that our leadership could do at this time. People like Jonathan here, he's probably the lone voice at one point to think about our Indian people in terms of language. Finally, to our other, realized that in order to identify who we are, we need this language. On top of that, we need this culture. But to go up another step of what Jonathan is doing, and maybe something like Mr. Azure, maybe somebody like Raymond can do, is create a law. Create a law that says that this language is a natural resource. It's an inherent right, just like the inherent right of our treaties. It's like the water, it's like the air, it's like the earth, and it's like all the resources, the vegetation, the hay, the plants. The language is a natural resource. Raymond can write a law that says that the White Clay language, Dakota language, is a natural resource that belongs to the Fort Belknap people. Okay, once that natural resource is an inherent right and you define it within your civilization, within your government, they can't tax you. All of you educators who work with language, you do your 1040. On your 1040 it says Buster Moore, Native Language Instructor, Nakona. This, in our treaty, in our own government, in our own laws, that says, hey, you cannot tax trust property. And this is what you're working with. You're working with trust property, your language. And that's why I'm saying you could go on another level, and that United States can't tax you. You get a bigger refund. And there's no reason why we don't have to yield to that IRS, because this in our treaty says inherent rights. Aboriginal rights. So some of you, I can't say you can get some of that money in retrospect, like 5 years ago, but maybe next year, Raymond decides to write a resolution that says, or maybe even Jonathan puts something down that says something, maybe a declaration that the native languages are inherent or hereditary or aboriginal rights. My gosh, there's no way that the IRS can question you. They'll probably come after me now saying this like this, but within the past 7 years, I've been audited 4 times. I just got audited like in May. But there are some people who are native that have laws that says the IRS did not include the word tribes in the Constitution. And there are cases that it held up. So I just wanted to go off on a tangent, Raymond, that there are things like these elements that could empower your people. And on the same line of reflecting on your culture and tying it with the language, I mentioned it several times among my people, not only in Fort Berthold, but also in Crow. I always think maybe if I was a white person, they would listen to me, but they don't. But then now, you know, it was kind of funny. I was sitting there, I was working with a bunch of Dakota. At one time, there used to be kind of a misunderstanding between the Crow and the Sioux. But now, how did this happen to where I'm with them, and then my people, I'm not working with them. Just kind of wonder about that, yeah. Gee, but I'm sure proud to be working with the Dakota people. They're really good. I noticed that language that they have is so rich and has some really beautiful inflections that some languages don't have. Some detail that's so beautiful. So what we got to do on that level is that when we create these laws, we may need to have something like this written in all our institutions. A code of ethics of what it means to be White Clay, what it means to be Nakona, to where we indoctrinate these concepts everywhere. And maybe even every day on the radio station, when somebody turns up the radio and on the radio it says what it means to be White Clay, what it means to be Nakona, it means to have respect, it means to be humble, it means to be honored, it means to be leaders, it means to be encouraging, to inspire, to dream. And you begin to tell our people, your children, to where they believe that, to where you have elders that begin to realize that there's a direction to come here, and our children are looking to fulfill a need in their language and culture. And they, in turn, respond and encourage them and support them. Not criticizing them, not putting them down, but to build them up no matter what they're doing, no matter how many mistakes they make, to continue to inspire them like that. To where I'm saying that, again, Raymond, maybe some kind of code of ethics of what it means to be posted somewhere. What it means to be. Because I walked into Sitting Bull College one day. I walked into a beautiful reception area. And then on my left here, they had about like 11 statements of what it means to be Lakota. Lakota people are like this. And it had generosity, and it had respect for elders. And then I opened it up on a web page, and the same thing was going on like that. And that was so inspiring that somewhere along the line we need a code of ethics to define who we are, to build character in terms of our planning. In this digital world, I understand that, that there's a whole database of Grovon over in Montana State University in Billings, used to be called Eastern. I went time into their archives with this guy named Snoog. That was his name. I think his name was Tom Shaw, but we called him Snoog. Anyway, we went in there, and my gosh, there's like these old reels of all Grovon. And some of them were way back there in different types of formats that I don't think some of them have might have a challenge looking for that machine that plays those. But there's a whole archive of that, of your language over there. I went and seen it with old Tom. So what I mean is you can update that and put that into this type of format where you record, basic phrases. One thing before we, as we're going along, what I've seen among a lot of different tribes is that a lot of the youth, they don't know how to listen. And I think we're going to have to take a lot of initiative to teach people how to listen again, because listening is one of the key elements of learning. Listening is the first step in learning our language. And if these children can't listen, how are you going to expect them to learn your language? So we're going to have to take some formal initiatives to create educational packages to where we indoctrinate the ability to listening, because listening has to do with respect. And being a respect is what it means, to be who we are as Native people. It's a cultural trait, it's a cultural foundation. And we're going to have to do that at some point in time to reorientate our people like that. So I had a whole bunch of activities that I've been doing now with the 3 affiliated tribes.
That's a good point, David. A lot of the elders have given up their ways and they don't want to listen. So the kids who want to learn, that needs to be addressed somewhere. I see it more here on Fort Belknap than I did when I was working at Lanny. That needs to somehow come up.
Thank you. We're going to have to not only do that hit or miss, we got to do it again. Some of these language seminars that we're having, we need a follow-up to reinforce some of the points. Even though we could say listening is important, we got to continue to say it on another level. Another level, I think sometimes, like for example, if you were to tell me something, it's going to take about 4 times. Sometimes I might not interpret it right. I got a point where I could put it on my back burner, but I'm going to have to start bringing it up to the front burner to where I finally realize that it's important like that. So there's a number of elements, a number of issues that we have to get together and plan. Not only a law, not only our teaching, not only a mission, not only a plan, not only our culture, but we have to include all of these into a long-term strategic plan, and to where we protect this. At some point in time, I understand that the United States is going to possibly get out of the Indian business, and they're going to just turn us loose. And what's going to help our people is the business models that are happening in the U.S. right now. It's a model that the Alaskans use to maintain their culture, and that's that business incorporation. Well, maybe you have a tribal land and then you incorporate this so they don't get that. If you have different shares, you could name a business after that or a non-profit and say it's going to be used for medicinal purposes of growing your plants, or it's going to be used as a open air school or a place of prayer. You're going to protect that. But probably within about the next 10, 15 years, the United States is going to say, hey, enough of this Indian business, to where we're going to have to start planning, not only in terms of infrastructure, but healthcare, of foods, of a diet. I was so impressed that you have a community garden out there. Not too many people do that anymore. And that's one of our means that's going to help us heal. Because this whole process is going to be part of a healing process. I don't know about, I took enough time here, but I want to thank you, and I want to wish you all the best. And even in my own time, like I said when I first started out this morning, that we offered some prayers in your mountain 17 years ago, not only including all of our tribes here in Montana, but for this land and this civilization that is of the White Clay and the Kona people, and that it's going somewhere, and there's a road there. It's being traveled, and there are leaders amongst you that take an initiative to organize like this. So at this time, I just want to, hopefully we have time to do some more planning sometime or another and come together. Yes, sir.
Living that New York student housing, and I saw people there under the hood looking at the engine, and they would talk in crow, and then they would say Alpha, and then they would talk some more, and then they'd say the battery, and then they would talk some more, and they'd say Vandal. And so I didn't speak crow, I don't know, but I kind of knew what they were talking about, what was causing this vehicle to not turn over.
So I'll have him let people know that back here he is setting up the
Yeah, they have, like it's,
You know, like now, the headlights, we call it the eyes.
uh-huh.
The battery, the heart. Okay. And the tires, the wheels. All of you can talk about, you can talk the hood and talk now. And not say a word.
It's Blackfeet, eh?
Like an alternator. A star.
This almost sounds like crow here. The paw say that. That's yeah. Huh.
It's like my grandfather and I used to go to the trading post. A lot of the people that ran the trading post spoke Navajo. They learned to speak Navajo. And this white guy would say, hey, listen, what do you want? And my grandfather would say, you're the strong one. Okay. They adopted the word for Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was called Yogurt, the strong one. According to this engineer, exploding, the black exploding water is very strong. And that's how we, and then Pepsi is the same, but only that it's not strong. And that was referred to the industry as being not strong. And so that's how we, because last summer I went home and I talked to some of my relations, and I mentioned that I'm not strong, and they knew what I was talking about. And at the emergency school over here, I asked, how do you describe about Coca-Cola and Pepsi? Or how do you distinguish between them, or the words, or whatever? And I didn't get no response. You see, it's good to have the language come familiar with the changes of the ranch that went through how it is today. But there are some ranch in that whole ranch that we borrowed from other tribes, from other people. And so I just thought I was mention that to you.
Yeah, thank you. Going back to what you were pointing out, I just in reflection, most of the natives languages are like descriptive, describing something. Like for example, among the Crow, the word car is ilala, or something that rolls, like it rolls by itself. It goes by itself. And for example, in the military, the same thing goes like, there isn't really no word for captain or sergeant, except maybe the stripes that say Sloida or 3 stripes or something, but most of the time it gets it down with Jake Chan. Even if it goes up to the top general in the army, he's still a war leader, and his down the chain of command, they're still a war leader, so there's not really that hierarchy, but they just call them war leader, and that's more descriptive, not like, you know, where we say that there's a fireman, there's like a house. Anyway, that's kind of the concept. I think maybe in terms of people when they start creating words, they would have some kind of parameter and steps to follow, because they might not know maybe what goes into a Pepsi, or what is it held in, what is the taste of it, and then start differentiating and then focusing it down to where they could make maybe something in a term of less than maybe 1 breath or 2 breaths. And it just takes some working together, and like you said, borrowing. Again, I guess I'm going to close at this point, and going to wish you all the best, and I'm sure Jonathan's got some good information to share with us. And I'll turn it back over to our MC here. I created Nakona DVD a while back, maybe it was about 7 years ago, with the red bottom dialect. I just thought I'd show it earlier, and it was using sign language as a means to learn different phrases. Got about 400 entries in there. I noticed that Nakona is pretty heavy up in Canada. And one thing about Nakona, it sounds a lot like Hiranza, and it sounds like Crow, but it also sounds like Dakota too. So some of the root words that we know in Hiranza and Crow and some in Dakota, you can understand a lot in Nakona. It's pretty much, I was really surprised. I went to Morley, and there was a lady, she was talking Dakota to me, but it sounded more like Assiniboine, and I responded to her with some Crow words, and she understood. It was kind of cool that language was quite similar in Canadian dialects with what we have here. Thank you for your time.